Speaking of toilets, let's go to Cincinnati because things got ugly. Breach, we'll talk about your Bengals in a second. But here's what I would say to you. C.J. Stroud looks like the best rookie quarterback in human history. As a Bengals fan, I want to ask you, what did it feel like watching C.J. out-burrow Joe Burrow in Cincinnati in November when Joe Burrow never loses?
I felt like I was watching the 1990s Bengals all over again. You remember for the whole decade when they were just absolutely horrible? That's what this looked like out there. And that's a compliment to C.J. Stroud, who is literally just unstoppable. I mean, he just finds people who are open. He gets them the ball. If they're not open, he runs around for 10 seconds until they get open, and then he gets them the ball. So no matter how you spin it, it ends up with him getting the ball to his open receivers. I mean, the Bengals, I think, tried to cover Noah Brown, but somehow he always ended up making a huge catch. I mean, we're talking about someone who averaged more than 25 yards a catch. It was just bonkers, everything that was happening out there. And sometimes you think, hey, maybe they're giving up the pass because they're selling out to stop the run. Not the case here, because Devin Singletary also just steamrolling them. And so I will say that I came away from this game not just thinking that C.J. Stroud is rookie of the year material, front runner, probably a lock at this point, but I think we got to put him in the MVP conversation. That is how good he is playing right now. And I will tell you this, and because I usually have a pretty good feeling. If I think the Bengals are going to win, most of the time they hold on. When they scored and tied the game 27-27, there was still over a minute left. I did not want – there was no part of me that thought they were going to win this game. Based on how C.J. Stroud had played so far, it was just he's going to drive them down the field. They're going to get a field goal, and it's game over. So I could turn this game off right now. So C.J. Stroud was like I cannot. That's the first time I've watched all four quarters. I've seen a good chunk of him. I've never seen him play all four quarters of an NFL game, and he just. I mean, it was unbelievable. I came away highly impressed. A+.
First rookie quarterback in 40 years to lead back-to-back game-winning drives in less than 2 minutes on the clock. Has now done that in back-to-back weeks. Only other quarterback, Cam Newton, to have record 800 passing yards in a 2-game span. And then, of course, Andrew Luck, Cam Newton, and C.J. Stroud, the only 3 quarterbacks ever to have 3 350-yard passing games as a rookie. He also has, by the way, the 4th most passing yards through 9 games in NFL history. I think that's like everybody in NFL history. That's not like rookies in NFL history. The dude has 26,026 passing yards so far. The Texans look awesome. Bobby Slowick is going to get, the offensive coordinator is going to get buzzed for a possible job. DeMeco Ryans looks like somebody that should have been hired for a head coaching job well before this year. And the Texans on Sunday were the first team since the 1998 Indianapolis Colts to have a 350-yard passer, a 150-yard rusher, and a 150-yard receiver in the same game. This is the Texans are legit. And yes, C.J. Stroud should be mentioned as an MVP candidate.
So the Texans are currently 7th in the playoff race, which means they're on the inside looking out at 5-4. The Bengals and the Bills are also 5-4, but the conference losses have them behind Houston. And I don't want to get too far. We're in week 10, but the wild card teams right now, the Steelers, the Browns, and the Texans. I think the Texans are staying where they are, and the Cincinnati Bengals and Buffalo Bills will have to make their case. Breece, let me ask you this, and you can also dap up Matt, the brother of Danny Amendola, for coming in for Kai Fairbairn and beginning the cavalcade of kickers winning field goals. But talk to me about the interception that CJ threw, only his 2nd of the year, I believe, late in the game that almost resulted in a pick 6, and then they scored. And then Tyler Boyd dropping the ball. Like, what are the chances that happens? And the 3-part question, did Joe Burrow take a step back? I mean, we know who Joe Burrow is, but he didn't have the dagger in his eyes approach that we saw in San Francisco.
I don't know, because you remember last year when Jamar Chase got injured, he got the hip injury, and the first game they played without him was a Monday night game against the Browns, and they just got, as Brinson loves to say, curb stomped. They got beat down. The game wasn't close. And the only reason I'm mentioning that is because obviously you had T. Higgins, who they thought was going to be playing up until he suffered a practice injury Wednesday. So it kind of came out of the blue. And now you go into that game. It just seems like when Burrow loses Higgins or Chase, that first game is just always rough. But you wouldn't know it, because the first drive, they drove straight down Houston's throat, got a touchdown, and it looked like they were going to put up 40 points and blow the Texans out. But the thing is, as badly as they played for most of the first quarter, all of the second quarter, all of the third quarter, half the fourth quarter, they still almost won this game. And as you mentioned, Tyler Boyd drops a touchdown pass. I mean, Tyler Boyd, I think, had like 1 drop, 2 drops all last year. Very uncharacteristic. He had 2 drops in this game. So the fact that that happened was unbelievable. And like you said, the Stroud interception was also shocking because it was on a 3rd and 2 where there was no reason to throw it unless the throw was there. At that point in the game, you don't have to take a huge risk. And so for that to put the Bengals back in the game, because then they got that touchdown. But man, it was
Breach. Do you think that there's a chance? So the Bengals come out of their bye and like we're like, okay, we think Burrow might be healthy. Like maybe the Bengals are back. They beat the Niners on the road. They beat the Bills at home, and it's like, holy crap, the Bengals are a problem. After this Texans game, they are at Baltimore versus the Steelers and at Jacksonville. Do you think that I'm not suggesting this, that they're like, well, we don't have to worry about the Texans because I mean Stroud had that huge game last week. But do you think there's a chance that this is sort of like a natural valley in the schedule where you're like, all right, we just won those 2 huge games against the Bills and the Niners. Like you take a little bit of a breath and you're thinking, man, these division games are going to change, like alter everything. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like
I would be surprised if that was the case. If there was going to be a situation where the Bengals were going to be caught looking ahead to their next opponent, it would be this one where they have a huge game on Thursday in Baltimore against the Ravens.
Thursday. That's right. Yeah.
And as you said, they just played the Bills last Sunday night. So this game is sandwiched in between 2 primetime games against the Texans, the one team that just everyone's sleeping on. But now C.J Stroud's good. I don't think anyone's going to sleep on him anymore. So, yeah, absolutely. I think this could have been the Bengals were caught looking ahead, but that also discredits what the Texans did, which was absolutely destroy the Bengals.
Yeah, I don't feel like it was a trap game or whatever you want to call it because
it's not like I don't think it was a trap game, Wilson. Just they were looking ahead a little bit.
A letdown game.
I don't even know if they were doing that because we knew the Texans were good. Like the Texans aren't sneaking up on anyone. It's not like as coordinating producer Scott Riley calls it, Yellow Jameis didn't show up on the field today to start winging the ball around the yard. You knew what you were getting in CJ.
Well, they did, Wilson. There was like chatter before the game. It was like, should they sit out Jamar Chase and let him rest for Thursday? Which is,
but you know what? I've learned our lesson. We said, and I was one of these people, and the guy below me was, sit down Joe Burrow until he's ready to go. Just play him.
I say, yeah.
Throw him out there and see what happens.
Well,
Either way,
I'm just saying that like that buzz was out there. It was like, will the Bengals like sit Jamar Chase? And it's like, if you're sitting Jamar Chase against the Texans, you're basically saying, we think we can beat you with our defense in a run game, and then we need Jamar Chase for Baltimore, which I mean they do. But now, by the way, Houston, 1 game back of the Jaguars.
Well, that's the other thing. So let's go through this just quickly, and we'll continue this conversation. But the Ravens lost in humiliating fashion. The Bengals lost a game they probably should have won. The Jaguars lost in humiliating fashion. To quoting Brinson, they got curb stomped at home. And then you have the Texans playing out of their minds. The AFC North, I think it's still going to be Breach's team and the Ravens. But to your point, Brinson, Texans are hanging out there. If they have a legit MVP candidate at quarterback, and I want to circle back to that. Let's go there. So, Brinson, I'll ask you this because our buddy Pete Prisco and Danny Cannell were on set at CBS Sports HQ last week. Danny said CJ was a top 10 quarterback before this game last week when he threw for 450 and 5 touchdowns or whatever it was. And, of course, Pete pushed back. He's a top 10 quarterback.
I think we talked about this on Tuesday's show, right? Where we're like,
oh, maybe we did.
I was like, that's kind of silly. Then I was like, well, you start listening to him, you're like, no, he is this year a top 10 quarterback. And by the way,
it'd have to be this year, wouldn't it? What do you mean?
Oh, right. Well, I just mean like at 10 weeks in.
Yeah.
Like I don't know that like with all the quarterback injuries, like Kirk Cousins probably having a better year than C.J. Stroud, right?
That's close, maybe? But yeah, CJ
yeah.
Kirby's balling out for sure.
What do you think C.J. Stroud's numbers are for offensive rookie of the year?
Oh, it must be minus 500.
10,000.
Minus 1,000.
Minus
1,000.
Wow.
So I mean, it's still like you got to risk $1,000 to win 100. What do you think his MVP odds are?
Minus 2,000.
Plus 1,000.
Oh, plus. Sorry. Yeah. I'm going the wrong way.
40-1 at DraftKings. I saw.
Plus 4,000.
40-1. Yeah, I hate plus 4,000. Yes, plus
I can't
4,000.
do that. I can't do the math.
Yeah, but that sounds like you're making a huge bet when it's plus 4,000.
Okay. Well,
right.
let's.
But I'm just saying that like I think it's fun to put him in the MVP conversation. I think it's highly unlikely that he will play this way the entire season. But if he does, and the Texans win the
8 out of 9 games.
If the Texans win the division and C.J. Stroud is plays like this for the entire year and dominates as the best rookie quarterback. And the Texans had a top 3 pick the last 3 years and hadn't won more than 4 games the last 3 years. Like, how do you not say he is the valuable reason for why this happened? And by the way, D'Amico Ryans, I would assume is the heavy favorite for Coach of the Year now.
Dan Campbell.
All right, let me ask you guys this. We asked the question a couple weeks ago last week after they beat the Buccaneers with that comeback. Are the Texans good enough to make the playoffs? Let's scrap that and say, who is going to win the AFC South? As of
So
week
two-part
10,
question,
Sunday
Breach.
night, who was your pick to win the AFC South?
Two-part question. So Breach's question is 1. My 1A is, who's better in the division, Trevor or CJ? So
CJ Stroud's been better.
Oh, okay, that was easy. I thought you were going to give me a little pushback because you're a 514 guy. I don't know what the area code is there.
Wait, what did Brinson say?
He said CJ is playing better.
CJ Stroud, I mean, like no human on earth could possibly put Trevor Lawrence ahead of CJ Stroud this year. For this year, for how they play.
I agree with you 100%. But
I would still think the Jaguars will win the division. But I was high on the Texans before the season, and ironically,
you had me at high. But go ahead.
I was high on the Texans before the season. Ironically, the only reason I cooled off on the Texans is because I didn't love C.J. Stroud coming out of Ohio State, and so right in my face.
Okay, so did you say you have the Texans winning the? Oh, you're saying Jaguars.
I'm going Jaguars, but I'm
going Texans and Coleridge Bernard Stroud the 4th for my.
I am signing off on what Ryan just said. I like the Texans to win the division and old CJ.
What's his full name?
Coleridge Bernard Stroud the 4th. No J in the name, which makes it even awesomer.
Is no J?
It's wild. That's why he's.
Where
so
did
good.
CJ come from? That's
is
so.
J in a real letter? Is my name actually on Breach? This is crazy.
All right.
Mine's
moving on. Yeah, that's
top 3 MVP candidate, C.J. Stroud.
They're fun to watch, if nothing else. And to Brinson's point earlier, that was a great 1 p.m. and even 4 p.m. slated game. So sorry you lost, Breach, but that was a fun game for CJ for sure. And the Texans